It was already past 8 when I pulled into the driveway that night. The city lights of San Diego shimmered faintly through the windshield, a quiet reminder of how long the day had been. My head was still full of floor plans and presentation slides. The big pitch was finally over, and for the first time in weeks, I thought maybe I could breathe again. I pushed open the front door, expecting silence, maybe the sound of the television, or Rachel sitting on the couch with her sketchbook. Instead, what I saw made my steps falter. She was standing in front of the mirror by the hallway, adjusting the strap of a deep maroon dress. The fabric caught the light like liquid wine, hugging every curve of her body. My wife had always been beautiful, but there was something different about the way she looked that night. Poised, deliberate, and distant. I leaned against the doorframe, watching her reflection. "I don't think I've seen that dress before," I said lightly, trying to sound casual. Rachel glanced over her shoulder. Her lips curved into a small smile, but her eyes didn't meet mine. "You haven't? I just bought it. I have a dinner tonight." "Dinner?" I repeated. "With who?" "With the project team," she replied, slipping on her earrings as if she rehearsed the answer. I didn't say anything right away. I just watched her. Something inside me went still. Rachel hadn't worked with that agency for 2 months now. She'd said she needed a break, that freelance life would give her more freedom. I'd supported her. But now, as she fastened her necklace, I felt that quiet, creeping certainty that something was wrong. I took a slow breath. "I didn't know you were still in touch with them," I said softly. Rachel turned, giving me that same polite smile, the one she used on strangers. "It's just dinner, Marcus. Don't make it something it's not." Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled as she picked up her purse. I noticed her perfume, new, heavy with jasmine and musk, not the light floral scent she usually wore. I wanted to ask more, to press for an answer that made sense. But instead, I just stood there, watching the woman I thought I knew become someone I didn't recognize. My chest tightened. "Rachel," I finally said, my tone low but steady, "if you walk out wearing that dress tonight, don't come back." She froze for a second. The air between us turned thick and heavy. Then she gave a short, disbelieving laugh. "You're being ridiculous," she said, shaking her head as she brushed past me. I didn't stop her. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving the faint echo of her perfume hanging in the hallway. For a long time, I just stood there. The house was too quiet, too clean, too perfectly arranged, like a model home, not a life built together. My reflection in the mirror looked tired, older somehow. I sat down on the couch and turned on the lamp. Its yellow light spilled over the coffee table where her mug still sat half empty. The steam was gone, the tea cold. The clock ticked on, minute by minute, and the city outside went silent. I tried reading emails, sketching out ideas for my next project. Anything to drown out the sound of the wind whispering against the windows. But no matter what I did, my mind kept circling back to that dress, that perfume, that look in her eyes. By 11, I gave up pretending to work. I just sat there waiting, though I wasn't sure for what. Maybe for her to come home. Maybe for the truth to arrive before she did. The hours dragged. Midnight crept in, and still I waited. And somewhere deep down beneath the fatigue and the anger, there was something colder. The quiet understanding that nothing about this night would ever leave me the same.
The clock struck midnight when I finally heard the sound of her car outside. Headlights washed briefly across the living room window, and then there was silence. I didn't move. I just sat there, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the house. The front door opened and Rachel stepped in. Her hair was a little messy now, her lipstick faintly smudged. She froze when she saw me sitting on the couch. The smell of her perfume filled the room, mixed now with something else, something unfamiliar. "Oh," she said softly, surprised. "You're still up." I looked at her. I didn't raise my voice, didn't slam my hand against the table like the movies taught you to. I just said, "You told me it was a team dinner." She hesitated, her hand tightening on her purse. "It was," she said, a little too quickly. I didn't respond. I simply opened my laptop, turned it toward her, and watched as her eyes landed on the screen. The hotel receipt glowed against the dark background, La Jolla Beach Resort, 1 room, 2 dinner entrees, 1 bottle of Pinot Noir. The name on the digital invoice read Rachel Hill. She didn't say a word. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. The silence that followed was unbearable. I could hear the faint buzzing of the overhead light, the soft rhythm of her breathing. Finally she whispered, "Marcus, please, it's not what you think." But I didn't ask her to explain. I didn't want to hear the lies, or the justifications, or the words that would make it worse. I had always believed that betrayal sounded loud, like shouting, breaking glass, or doors slamming. But it didn't. It sounded like this. So, almost apologetic. I stood up slowly. "You should get some rest," I said quietly. "You look tired." Her face twisted, confusion mixing with fear. "Wait, what do you mean? You're not even going to talk about it?" I turned off the laptop and closed it gently. "There's nothing to talk about." "Marcus, please," she begged, stepping closer. Her hand reached out, trembling, but I stepped back before she could touch me. In that moment, I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had burned itself out hours ago. What was left was something worse, emptiness. She began to cry, small, broken sounds that filled the room like glass cracking under pressure. I wanted to comfort her. Habit, maybe. Love doesn't just disappear overnight. But I didn't move. I just stood there, watching the woman who had once been my entire world slowly crumble before me. Finally, she said it. The thing I knew was coming. "It was a mistake," she whispered. "Just one night. It didn't mean anything." I closed my eyes. There was the sentence that was supposed to make everything better, but it only made the wound deeper. Without a word, I walked past her and headed to the bedroom. I didn't pack, didn't plan. I just needed space to breathe, to think. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, while her quiet sobs echoed faintly from the living room. Sleep never came. Instead, I watched the shadows on the wall shift with the headlights of passing cars. Every sound felt sharper. The ticking clock, the faint rustle of her moving in the next room, the dull thud of my own heartbeat. I realized then that I wasn't angry at what she did. I was angry at what it took from me. The peace, the trust, the simple comfort of coming home. When dawn began to stretch through the curtains, I finally rose. The light was pale, the kind of gray that comes before the sun decides to show up. I looked at Rachel one last time as she slept on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, her face streaked with tears. Quietly, I grabbed my sketch tube, my laptop bag, and a small suitcase. I didn't leave a note. I just left. Outside, the morning air felt cold, sharp, almost cleansing. I started the car, pulled out of the driveway, and didn't look back. The city was still asleep as I drove north toward Oceanside, toward Ethan's apartment. I didn't know what the next day would bring. But I knew one thing. Whatever came next, it wouldn't be this. Ethan's apartment in Oceanside was small, tucked above a coffee shop that smelled like roasted beans and salt air. It wasn't much, but it was quiet, and right then, quiet was all I needed. He didn't ask many questions when I showed up at dawn with a suitcase and tired eyes. We'd been friends long enough for him to know when silence said more than words ever could. For the next few days, I tried to pretend life hadn't cracked in half. I told my firm I'd be working remotely on some concept revisions. I jogged along the pier at sunrise, drank too much coffee, and tried to lose myself in my sketches. But every time I drew a line, I thought of Rachel's voice saying, "It was a mistake." The words stuck to me like smoke. By the end of the week, I opened my laptop again. The same laptop that had shown me everything I never wanted to see. I didn't mean to torture myself, but part of me needed to confirm it wasn't all a dream, that I hadn't overreacted. The receipt was still there, saved automatically in the folder of our shared bills. The digital ink hadn't faded. The date, the name, the charges, all of it exactly as before. 2 dinners. 1 bottle of wine. 1 night. 1 betrayal. I closed the screen and sat back, breathing in the quiet. Outside, the sound of waves drifted through the open window. A train passed in the distance, its horn echoing across the coast. For a moment, I imagined that train carrying me somewhere far away, to a place where I didn't have to think about the smell of her perfume or the sight of her standing in that red dress. But there's no train far enough to outrun your own mind. Late that night, my phone buzzed. A text. Her name lighting up the screen felt like a ghost tapping on my shoulder. Marcus, please. I need to see you. I need to explain. I stared at it for a long time before replying with 2 words. Not tonight. The next morning, she showed up anyway. I heard her before I saw her. The soft knock on Ethan's door, hesitant and familiar. I didn't want to open it, but something inside me still needed closure. So I did. Rachel stood there, pale and tired, eyes swollen from crying. She looked smaller somehow, as if regret had carved her down to something fragile. Marcus, please, she began, her voice shaking. I know you don't want to see me, but I have to tell you what happened. I didn't stop her. I just leaned against the doorway and let her talk. It wasn't supposed to happen, she said, her fingers twisting the strap of her purse. After I left the agency, David called me. He said he wanted to talk about a project. I shouldn't have gone, but I did. We had dinner, we talked about old times, and then, she stopped. Her eyes filled with tears. It was one night, Marcus. One stupid night. I don't even know why. I wish I could take it back. Her words fell between us, fragile and pointless. I'd imagined hearing them 100 times, and yet, now that she said them, they didn't matter. They didn't fix anything. Do you think saying it was a mistake changes what it did to me? I asked quietly. She shook her head, sobbing now. No. But I can't live with you hating me. I wanted to tell her I didn't hate her. That I still loved her, in some broken, leftover way. But love without trust is just grief with prettier packaging. I stepped aside for a moment, letting her into the room. She looked around at Ethan's cluttered apartment, the rolled-up blueprints on the table, the sketchbooks scattered across the couch. The reality of what she'd done seemed to hit her all over again. This isn't your home, she said softly, as if realizing it for the first time. No, I replied. It's not. Not anymore. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The sound of the ocean drifted in through the window. The sun was setting, painting everything in gold, the same color as her hair when we first met. For a moment, I almost wished we could go back to that day. But we can't rebuild what we've already burned down. When she finally stood to leave, I didn't stop her. She turned at the door, tears glistening on her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I nodded once. I know. Then she was gone. The apartment felt heavier when the door closed. I sat there in the fading light, staring at the sketch I'd been working on, a building half drawn, half erased. It looked exactly like my life. That night, I poured a drink and went out to the small balcony. The wind carried the smell of the sea, cool and sharp. Somewhere in the distance, the waves crashed against the rocks, relentless and calm, like the world reminding me that it would keep moving with or without me. I took a long breath and whispered to no one, mistakes can be forgiven. But trust can't be rebuilt. The glass trembled slightly in my hand. And I knew then, the hardest part wasn't losing her. It was learning how to live in the silence she left behind. The sky was still dark when I woke up. Oceanside was quiet except for the slow rhythm of waves breaking against the shore. The air coming through the window carried that familiar ocean chill, clean, restless, endless. For a few seconds, I forgot where I was. Then the memory of Rachel's face at the door hit me, and the weight of it all came rushing back. I sat up, staring at the half-finished sketches scattered across the floor. Lines, angles, structures, all of them meant to hold something together. But all I could see was how fragile everything really was. How easily things collapse when one small truth is ignored for too long. Ethan was still asleep in the next room. He'd offered me his couch indefinitely, said I could stay as long as I needed. I appreciated that, but I knew I couldn't. This place had become a pause button, not a life. And I was tired of living in between breaths. So I started packing before sunrise. A few clothes, my laptop, my sketchbooks. The essentials. I didn't have a plan, just a direction, the need to keep moving before the grief caught up again. By the time the horizon began to blush with the first signs of light, I was on the road. The highway stretched out before me like a promise I didn't fully believe in. The sky turned from violet to soft gold, and for a moment, I almost felt something like peace. Halfway down the coast, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Rachel. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I set the phone face down on the passenger seat and let the sound of the wind fill the silence. I thought about the house in San Diego, the one we designed together. Every room had a piece of us in it. The coffee stain on the kitchen counter from one of our midnight talks. The uneven patch of paint in the guest room where she'd insisted on trying a new color. Even the garden she'd planted, with her favorite lilies that never quite bloomed right. It was strange, realizing that a place could still hold love even when the people who built it had none left to give. When I reached a quiet lookout point near Carlsbad, I pulled over. The ocean stretched endlessly below, gray and silver in the early light. I stood there for a long time, letting the wind whip through my hair, the salt biting against my skin. For the first time in days, I let myself breathe deeply, long, slow, deliberate breaths. The kind that remind you you're still alive, even if everything you believed in has fallen apart. I remembered the way Rachel used to stand beside me on mornings like this, her head resting on my shoulder, both of us watching the world wake up. The memory hurt, but it didn't break me. Not anymore. It was just another piece of the past, floating away like driftwood. Eventually, I took out my sketchbook. My hands shook a little as I began to draw, lines, shapes, the faint outline of something new. It wasn't a house or a building this time. It was something simpler, lighter. A bridge, stretching out across water, leading to a place I couldn't quite see yet. When the sun finally rose, I felt its warmth on my face. A new day. A new silence. I thought about what she'd said, that it was a mistake, that she wished she could take it back. Maybe she meant it. Maybe she didn't. But that wasn't mine to carry anymore. I tore the sketch from the book, folded it once, and tucked it into my jacket pocket. Then I turned back to the car and started the engine. The road waited, quiet and open, like a clean sheet of paper. As I drove north, the city behind me grew smaller, fading into the soft gold of morning. I didn't know where I was heading, only that I couldn't go back. Because sometimes moving forward isn't about finding something new, it's about learning to live without what you lost. And as the sun rose higher, I realized that the silence I'd feared all along wasn't empty. It was just space to rebuild, to breathe, to begin again.